Let me begin with a simple question. Have you ever met someone who says very little, but when they speak, it feels like they already knew what you were going through? They don't predict the future. They don't read minds. They simply see more clearly, inside and out. Today's speech is not about magic. It's about awareness, because the third eye is not something you open. It's something you stop ignoring. Most of us go through life using only what we can see, hear, and prove. We trust what is visible, measurable, and approved by others. From a very young age, we are trained to rely on external validation, marks, titles, opinions, and outcomes. Slowly, without realizing it, we begin to disconnect from an inner sense that once guided us naturally. As children, we knew when something felt right or wrong without needing explanations. That sensitivity was not childish, it was intuitive intelligence. Over time, it was buried under conditioning. Intuition is not dramatic. It does not shout or demand attention. It arrives quietly, often before logic has finished building its argument. It is that subtle discomfort when something looks perfect but feels off. It is that calm assurance when a path seems uncertain yet strangely peaceful. The problem is not that intuition disappears as we grow older. The problem is that we stop respecting it. We start believing that if something cannot be explained, it cannot be trusted. The mind becomes busy collecting information, comparing choices, and predicting outcomes. While knowledge is valuable, an overloaded mind struggles to listen. Intuition requires space. It needs a pause between thoughts, a moment where awareness is not rushing toward the next task. When the mind is constantly occupied, intuition speaks but goes unheard, like a soft melody playing in a noisy room. This inner sense is often confused with impulse or emotion, but it is neither. Impulse is rushed and impatient. Emotion is reactive and temporary. Intuition is calm and steady. It does not push, it gently guides. It does not create fear, it reduces confusion. When you feel centered even in uncertainty, that is intuition at work. When a decision brings peace instead of excitement, that is intuition speaking. Modern life celebrates speed but ignores depth. We are encouraged to respond quickly, decide fast, and move on. Intuition, however, operates in a different rhythm. It needs attentiveness, not urgency. When everything is about efficiency, inner wisdom is treated as unnecessary. Yet the most meaningful decisions in life, relationships, purpose, direction, cannot be made purely through calculation. They require inner alignment. The forgotten sense was never lost. It was simply overshadowed. Like a muscle that hasn't been used, intuition becomes subtle when neglected, not absent. The moment you slow down and begin to notice your inner reactions without judging them, this sense starts to reawaken. You begin to realize that clarity was always available, waiting patiently beneath the noise. Reconnecting with intuition is not about learning something new. It is about remembering something old. It is about trusting that there is an inner intelligence that understands you better than any external advice. When you start listening to it, life doesn't become easier, but it becomes more honest. And honesty, more than certainty, is the foundation of true inner vision. At some point, without any clear moment of loss, our inner vision becomes blurred. It doesn't happen suddenly, it happens gradually, quietly, almost politely. We don't wake up one day and decide to ignore our intuition. We simply become too busy to listen. Life starts demanding answers, performance, results, and approval. In meeting those demands, we begin to outsource our sense of direction to the world outside. From morning to night, attention is pulled in multiple directions. Screens tell us what to want, who to be, and how fast to move. Comparisons creep in effortlessly. We measure our progress against someone else's highlight moments and assume we are behind. When the mind is constantly comparing, it is never present, and when presence is lost, intuition has no space to breathe. Another reason inner vision fades is the fear of being wrong. Intuition does not come with guarantees. It doesn't provide detailed roadmaps or safety nets. It asks for trust. Over time, we are trained to value certainty over sincerity. We choose what looks safe rather than what feels true. Slowly, we start doubting our inner signals because they don't always align with popular opinion or logical reassurance. Emotional clutter also plays a significant role. Unresolved disappointments, unspoken fears, and stored resentment act like filters over perception. When emotions remain unprocessed, they distort intuition. What feels like inner guidance is sometimes just past hurt, trying to protect itself. This confusion makes people distrust their inner voice altogether, assuming it cannot be reliable. Noise is not only external, it is internal as well. The constant inner dialogue of self, criticism, worry, and anticipation creates mental static. When the mind keeps replaying the past or rehearsing the future, it cannot sense what is happening now. Intuition functions only in the present moment. The more time we spend mentally elsewhere, the less access we have to inner clarity. Social conditioning adds another layer. We are praised for fitting in, not for listening inward. Questioning norms is often discouraged, especially when it makes others uncomfortable. So we learn to suppress inner doubts and follow familiar paths, even when they don't feel aligned. Over time, this repeated suppression weakens trust in oneself. The inner compass is still there, but we stop checking it. We also mistake constant thinking for intelligence. We assume that more analysis will always lead to better decisions. But excessive thinking often creates confusion, not clarity. Intuition doesn't compete with thought, it complements it. However, when thinking becomes compulsive, intuition is drowned out. The mind becomes so loud that subtle insight cannot pass through. The loss of inner vision is not a failure. It is a side effect of survival in a fast, moving world. We adapt, but in adapting, we forget to pause. And in forgetting to pause, we forget to feel. What we call losing intuition is really just losing touch with ourselves. The moment we begin to slow down, question the noise, and make room for awareness, inner vision starts to return, not as something new, but as something familiar. Silence is often misunderstood. Many people associate it with emptiness, loneliness, or discomfort. The moment things become quiet, the mind rushes to fill the space with thoughts, memories, and worries. We reach for distractions not because we need them, but because silence exposes us to ourselves. And facing ourselves without filters or noise can feel unfamiliar. In daily life, silence is treated like a gap that must be closed. Background music, constant conversations, endless scrolling, these become shields against stillness. Yet silence is not the absence of life. It is the presence of awareness. When external sound reduces, internal clarity has a chance to surface. Silence is not doing nothing. It is allowing something deeper to speak. The mind, when constantly stimulated, becomes reactive. It jumps from one thought to another, never settling long enough to observe. Silence slows this momentum. It creates a pause where thoughts are seen rather than followed. In that pause, intuition becomes noticeable. It does not arrive as a loud realization, but as a gentle understanding that feels settled and complete. Silence also reveals patterns. When everything is quiet, you begin to notice how often the same thoughts repeat, how certain emotions rise without invitation, and how reactions are often automatic. This observation is powerful. It shows that much of what controls us operates beneath awareness. Silence brings these patterns into light, not to judge them, but to understand them. Many believe that silence requires long meditation sessions or isolation. In reality, even brief moments of stillness are enough. Sitting quietly for a few minutes, walking without headphones, or simply breathing without distraction can shift awareness. These small pauses remind the mind that it does not need constant input to function. In fact, it functions better without it. Silence strengthens sensitivity. Just as eyes adjust in darkness and begin to see more clearly, the inner sense sharpens in stillness. Subtle feelings, gut reactions, and quiet insights become easier to recognize. What once felt confusing starts to feel simple, not because answers are forced, but because unnecessary noise has been removed. There is also a healing quality to silence. It allows emotions to surface naturally instead of being suppressed or distracted away. When emotions are felt without resistance, they lose their intensity. This emotional clarity directly supports intuition, because an uncluttered emotional state allows inner guidance to be perceived accurately. Silence teaches patience. It reminds us that not every moment requires action or response. Some moments are meant only to be witnessed. In learning to sit with silence, we learn to trust the process of inner understanding. And when silence becomes comfortable, intuition stops feeling distant. It starts to feel like a natural part of awareness, steady, calm, and always present beneath the surface of noise. Most people believe change begins with action, but real transformation begins with awareness. Before any habit shifts, before any insight deepens, there is a simple moment of noticing. Awareness is not effort. It is attention without interference. It is the ability to see what is happening within and around you without immediately trying to fix it, explain it, or escape it. In daily life, awareness is often replaced by autopilot. We wake up, follow routines, react to situations, and repeat familiar patterns without truly being present. Thoughts run in the background like background noise, rarely questioned. Emotions arise and are instantly labeled as good or bad. Reactions happen so quickly that we assume they are part of who we are. Awareness interrupts this cycle. It creates a small gap between stimulus and response, and in that gap, choice appears. The moment you begin observing your thoughts, you realize something important. You are not your thoughts. Thoughts come and go, often repeating old stories shaped by past experiences. Awareness allows you to watch these stories without getting pulled into them. When thoughts are seen clearly, they lose some of their control. They stop defining reality and start becoming information. The same applies to emotions. Emotions are powerful signals, but when they are unconsciously acted upon, they dominate behavior. Awareness allows emotions to be felt fully without being acted out blindly. Anger can be noticed without becoming aggression. Fear can be acknowledged without becoming avoidance. This honest observation cleans emotional perception, making intuition more reliable and less distorted. Awareness also extends to reactions. Many reactions are learned responses, not conscious choices. A certain tone, situation, or comment can trigger immediate defensiveness or withdrawal. When awareness is present, these reactions are seen as patterns rather than truth. This recognition weakens their grip. Over time, reactions soften and responses become more intentional. As awareness deepens, a subtle shift occurs. Life stops feeling like something that is constantly happening to you. Instead, it feels like something you are participating in consciously. This shift is crucial for inner clarity. Intuition does not operate in chaos, it operates in awareness. The more clearly you see what is happening inside you, the easier it becomes to sense what aligns with you. Awareness also reveals contradictions. You begin to notice when actions don't match values, when decisions are driven by fear rather than truth, and when silence is avoided instead of embraced. These realizations can feel uncomfortable, but they are necessary. Awareness is not always pleasant, but it is always honest, and honesty is the foundation of inner vision. With consistent awareness, judgment naturally reduces. When you observe without labeling everything as right or wrong, understanding deepens. This non-judge, mental seeing creates mental space. In that space, intuition rises effortlessly. It doesn't need to push through resistance or noise. It simply appears as clarity, grounded and calm. Awareness is the beginning of awakening because it reconnects you to reality as it is, not as the mind constantly interprets it to be. When awareness becomes a way of living rather than a practice, inner vision strengthens naturally. You don't force insight, you allow it. And in allowing, clarity becomes a steady presence rather than a rare experience. The way we question life quietly shapes the way life responds to us. Most of the time, questions run automatically in the background of the mind, influenced by fear, habit, and past experiences. These questions are rarely examined, yet they direct attention toward anxiety rather than understanding. When the inner dialogue is filled with questions driven by insecurity, clarity becomes difficult to access. Many common questions arise from the need for approval or control. They focus on outcomes, opinions, and worst-case scenarios. Such questions narrow awareness and create mental pressure. The mind becomes busy searching for guarantees instead of truth. In this state, intuition remains muted because it does not operate under fear. It responds to openness, not tension. When questions shift from fear to curiosity, something changes internally. Honest questions invite reflection instead of panic. They slow the mind down rather than speeding it up. A thoughtful question creates space for insight to emerge naturally. Instead of demanding immediate answers, it allows understanding to unfold. Intuition responds best to questions that are rooted in self-honesty. These questions are not about what looks impressive or what others expect. They are about alignment. When you ask yourself what feels steady rather than exciting, what feels right rather than convenient, awareness deepens. The mind may not immediately know the answer, but the body and inner sense often do. The quality of a question determines the quality of attention. A shallow question produces a rushed answer. A sincere question invites depth. When attention moves inward with sincerity, intuition begins to participate. It may not give a full explanation, but it offers a direction. This direction often feels calm, grounded, and free from urgency. Better questions also reduce inner conflict. Instead of arguing with yourself, you begin listening. Questions such as whether something brings clarity or creates heaviness encourage introspection without pressure. They don't force a decision, they reveal readiness. Over time, this practice builds trust in inner guidance. Questions asked repeatedly shape inner habits. When fear-based questions dominate, the mind stays restless. When reflective questions become routine, the mind learns to pause. This pause is where intuition becomes audible. It is not that answers suddenly appear, but confusion gradually dissolves. Asking better questions is a form of respect toward inner intelligence. It signals willingness to listen rather than control. With consistent practice, questioning becomes less about seeking certainty and more about discovering alignment. In that alignment, intuition naturally strengthens, guiding choices with quiet confidence rather than anxious calculation. For many people, logic and intuition are seen as opposites, as if choosing one requires rejecting the other. This misunderstanding creates inner conflict. Logic is often praised as intelligent and safe, while intuition is dismissed as vague or unreliable. In reality, both serve different purposes, and clarity arises when they work together rather than compete. Logic analyzes facts, weighs options, and predicts outcomes based on available information. It is useful for planning, organizing, and executing decisions. However, logic is limited to what it already knows. It operates within past data and learned patterns. Intuition, on the other hand, draws from a deeper awareness. It senses patterns before they are fully formed and understands context beyond visible details. When intuition speaks first, logic can then support it with structure. Problems arise when logic dominates without inner guidance. Overthinking becomes common and decisions feel heavy. The mind keeps searching for the perfect answer, replaying scenarios and calculating risks. This constant analysis often leads to delay or self-doubt. Intuition could provide direction, but it is ignored because it doesn't present itself with detailed explanations. When intuition is followed without logic, confusion can also arise. Acting purely on feeling without reflection may lead to impulsive choices. Intuition is subtle and needs clarity to be interpreted accurately. Logic helps refine intuition by questioning, testing, and grounding it in reality. When both are balanced, decisions feel clear rather than chaotic. A healthy relationship between logic and intuition begins with listening. Intuition often offers the first signal, a sense of comfort or discomfort, alignment or resistance. Logic then steps in to understand the signal, explore practical implications, and plan the next steps. This cooperation reduces inattention because decisions no longer feel forced. Trust plays an important role in this balance. Many people trust logic because it feels controllable, while intuition feels uncertain. Yet intuition strengthens with use. When its signals are acknowledged and reflected upon logically, confidence grows. Over time, the mind learns that intuition is not random, but consistent when emotional noise is cleared. This balance also brings emotional ease. Decisions made with both inner guidance and rational thought tend to feel lighter, even when challenging. There is less regret because the choice was not made out of pressure or fear. It was made with awareness and understanding. When logic and intuition shake hands, decision-making becomes less exhausting. The mind stops arguing with itself. Action becomes steady, not rushed. This harmony creates a sense of trust within, allowing inner vision to function clearly and reliably in everyday life. Emotions carry information, but when they remain unresolved, they begin to distort perception. Many people move through life carrying emotional weight without realizing how deeply it affects their inner clarity. Past disappointments, suppressed anger, unexpressed grief, and hidden fears quietly influence decisions. What feels like intuition is often just an emotional memory reacting to a present situation. When emotions are ignored or pushed aside, they do not disappear. They settle into the background of the mind and shape reactions automatically. A small event triggers a strong response, not because of the present moment, but because of accumulated emotional residue. In such a state, inner guidance becomes difficult to recognize. The signal is mixed with emotional noise. Emotional detox does not mean avoiding emotions or labeling them as negative. It means allowing them to be felt without resistance or judgment. When emotions are acknowledged honestly, they lose their intensity. Suppressed emotions demand attention, but processed emotions create clarity. This clarity is essential for intuition to function accurately. Many people confuse emotional strength with emotional suppression. They believe staying busy or positive will erase discomfort. In reality, avoidance only deepens confusion. Intuition requires emotional transparency. When you are willing to feel discomfort without escaping it, awareness deepens and emotional energy begins to move freely. Fear is one of the strongest blockers of inner vision. Fear narrows perception and focuses attention on protection rather than truth. When fear dominates, intuition sounds like caution rather than clarity. By gently observing fear instead of reacting to it, its grip loosens. This observation allows intuition to emerge without distortion. Resentment and guilt also cloud inner awareness. They anchor attention to the past, preventing presence in the moment. Intuition exists only in the present. Releasing emotional attachments to past events does not mean forgetting them. It means learning from them without carrying their emotional charge forward. As emotional layers begin to clear, a noticeable lightness appears. Decisions feel simpler, reactions soften, there is less internal conflict. This is not emotional numbness, it is emotional balance. In this balanced state, intuition becomes more accessible and trustworthy. Emotional detox is an ongoing process, not a one-time effort. Each moment of honest emotional awareness contributes to clearer perception. As emotional clarity increases, intuition stops feeling confusing or unreliable. It becomes a steady guide, grounded in understanding rather than reaction. Inner vision is strengthened not through grand experiences, but through small, consistent actions repeated daily. What you practice regularly shapes how clearly you perceive life. Intuition grows in ordinary moments, not dramatic ones. The way you listen, pause, and respond each day slowly sharpens your inner awareness. One of the most powerful practices is learning to listen fully. When listening becomes genuine rather than preparatory for response, awareness deepens. You begin to notice tone, emotion, and intention beyond words. This same quality of listening extends inward. When you stop interrupting your own thoughts and feelings, intuition finds space to express itself. Spending time alone without distraction is another essential practice. Solitude is not isolation, it is clarity. Even short periods of being alone without screens or noise help the mind reset. In this quiet, the inner sense becomes more noticeable. You begin to recognize subtle feelings that were previously overlooked. Writing down thoughts and gut feelings brings awareness into form. When inner signals are expressed through writing, patterns become visible. Over time, you begin to see which feelings led to clarity and which were driven by fear. This reflection builds trust in intuition by separating it from emotional impulse. Paying attention to physical sensations also strengthens intuition. The body often responds before the mind understands. A sense of ease, tension, or heaviness carries valuable information. By noticing these signals without immediately analyzing them, awareness deepens and intuitive responses become clearer. Another daily habit is choosing simplicity over mental overload. Reducing unnecessary input news, opinions, constant updates creates mental space. A clear mind perceives more accurately. Intuition does not compete with excess information. It emerges when information is balanced. Practicing patience is equally important. Intuition rarely operates under urgency. Allowing decisions to settle instead of forcing them creates clarity. When you stop rushing answers, insight appears naturally. Trust grows through action. Acting on small intuitive nudges builds confidence. When inner guidance is respected in simple situations, it becomes stronger in complex ones. Each aligned action reinforces the connection between awareness and choice. These practices are subtle, but their impact is lasting. Over time, inner vision becomes sharper, not because effort increased, but because awareness became part of daily living. Intuition stops feeling like a rare experience and starts functioning as a natural guide in everyday life. Intuition becomes meaningful only when it is trusted. Many people sense inner guidance but hesitate to act on it. The hesitation often comes from fear, fear of being wrong, fear of judgment, or fear of uncertainty. Trusting intuition requires courage because it does not always align with logic, expectations, or social approval. It asks for faith in something that cannot always be explained. The first challenge in trusting intuition is doubt. The mind questions whether the feeling is genuine or imagined. This doubt is natural, especially when intuition suggests unfamiliar paths. However, intuition does not demand blind belief. It asks for attentive listening. When you reflect calmly on an inner signal instead of dismissing it immediately, trust begins to form. Trust grows gradually, not instantly. Acting on small intuitive insights builds confidence. These small decisions create feedback. When inner guidance leads to clarity or peace, the connection strengthens. When it leads to discomfort, reflection helps refine understanding. This process sharpens discernment rather than weakening trust. Ignoring intuition repeatedly has consequences. Each time inner guidance is dismissed, it becomes quieter, not because it disappears, but because attention shifts away from it. Over time, people begin to rely entirely on external validation, losing touch with inner direction. Rebuilding trust then requires patience and consistent awareness. Trusting intuition also means accepting uncertainty. Intuition often guides direction, not outcomes. It provides a sense of alignment rather than guarantees. Learning to move forward without full clarity develops inner strength. This strength reduces dependence on reassurance and approval. Courage plays a central role. Trusting intuition may require choosing honesty over comfort or growth over familiarity. These choices can feel risky, but they often lead to deeper fulfillment. Courage allows intuition to move from awareness into action. As trust deepens, inner conflict reduces. Decisions feel lighter, even when challenging. There is less regret because choices are made with authenticity rather than pressure. This alignment creates a sense of inner stability. Trusting intuition is not about perfection. It is about sincerity. When inner guidance is honored with patience and reflection, it becomes a reliable companion. Over time, trust transforms intuition from a quiet suggestion into a confident guide, supporting choices with clarity and calm. Living with an open inner eye changes the way life is experienced. It does not create distance from the world. It creates understanding within it. Awareness becomes steady rather than occasional. Instead of constantly reacting to situations, there is a sense of observing first and responding with intention. Life feels less overwhelming because attention is no longer scattered. With inner clarity, simplicity becomes natural. Many unnecessary struggles fall away. There is less need to prove, compete, or convince. Choices are made based on alignment rather than impulse. This does not mean life becomes effortless, but it becomes honest. Energy is conserved because it is no longer wasted on internal conflict. An open inner eye brings emotional maturity. Emotions are felt fully, but do not control behavior. Joy is appreciated without attachment, and discomfort is faced without avoidance. This balance allows deeper presence in everyday moments. Even ordinary experiences carry meaning when awareness is present. Relationships also shift. Listening improves and communication becomes calmer. There is less projection and more understanding. When inner clarity exists, expectations reduce. People are accepted as they are rather than as they are imagined to be. This acceptance strengthens connection without dependency. Decision-making becomes quieter. Instead of endless mental debate, there is a sense of knowing when the time is right to act or wait. This knowing is not rushed. It respects timing. Patience replaces anxiety, and confidence replaces urgency. An open inner eye also sharpens discernment. Not everything demands attention or reaction. Boundaries become clearer without rigidity. There is an understanding of what to engage with and what to let pass. This clarity protects inner peace without isolating from life. Gratitude deepens naturally. When awareness is present, small moments are noticed and appreciated. Contentment arises not from achieving more, but from recognizing what already exists. This contentment supports stability and resilience. Living with inner vision does not make someone extraordinary. It makes life grounded. There is less noise inside, and therefore less chaos outside. Awareness becomes a way of being rather than a practice. In this state, intuition flows quietly, guiding actions with clarity, balance, and calm presence. As we come to the end of this journey, remember this. Opening the inner eye is not about becoming someone new. It is about returning to who you have always been beneath the noise, the pressure, and the expectations. Nothing mystical was added along the way. Only clarity was restored. Life will still present challenges, uncertainty, and change. But when inner vision is awake, you are no longer lost within them. You move through life with steadiness, guided by awareness rather than fear. Decisions come from alignment, not confusion. Silence becomes a friend, not a void. The world outside may remain loud, but inside there is calm, and from that calm, wisdom flows naturally. When you learn to listen inward, you stop searching everywhere else for direction. The greatest awakening is not seeing more, it is seeing clearly. And when clarity becomes your way of living, intuition quietly leads you home, again and again, to truth, balance, and peace.